There's something puzzling about the terracotta soldiers of the Qin Emperor. A lot of the soldiers wear small round caps like this. Archaeologists have confirmed that it's a kerchief made of linen. The officers wear board-shaped caps made of cattle hide. Quite a number of the soldiers roll up their long hair into buns. Neither the soldiers nor the officers wear helmets. Not only are they helmetless, but their armour is very simple, with the least possible amount of protection. Soldiers of the main force have protective plates only on their chest and back. The crossbowmen in front wear no protection at all, just light clothes.
从横面看得出来，秦俑都是简装，都是简装。他的这个着的这个铠甲，但是这个铠甲呢，防护的这个面积呢并不大，都属于轻型的。和那个当时我们所了解那个魏国那个重装部队呢，正好形成一个明显的反差。
Qin state should have had the ability to provide enough armour. Historically, Qin was known to be the richest state after the Xiangyang political reforms. As stated in the historical records, Qin had a force of 1 million military men. However, the representation of the Qin army present here is not as well armoured as we thought it would be. What then is the historical reason for this strange fact? A diligent and conscientious legal official named Xi, who lived in Yuanmeng County in the state of Qin over 2,000 years ago, provides some clues. Xi joined the army 3 times. He recorded on bamboo slips 2 incidents which happened when the Qin army was attacking Xingqiu County. During the fighting at Xingqiu, a Qin soldier cut off and took an enemy head. Another Qin soldier tried to kill the first one and steal the head. But this plot was brought to light by a 3rd soldier, and the undisciplined soldier was caught in the act. Some other bamboo slips also recorded fights between soldiers for an enemy head. So, Qin soldiers went so far as to kill one another for an enemy's head. What made them so desperate for these bloody trophies? "135 years before Qin unified China, the reformer Xiangyang set up a legal system that other states would not have accepted. Ever since then, Qin strictly followed this legal code. It influenced people for 6 generations to come, right up to the first emperor of Qin."
按照商鞅的理论他就是要把老百姓塑造成一种只知道耕田和打仗，就是其他事情都不要问，做个老百姓，做个民众，就是要么就生产多打粮食，要么就是到前方去杀敌人，多杀敌人。
As decreed by Xiangyang, any Qin soldier who killed an enemy and chopped off his head would be rewarded with 1 grade of rank in the nobility and a house with a farm and some servants in addition. The more heads one chopped off, the higher the rank that would be awarded.
你只要打仗打得好，你就可以授爵。一授爵就有一定的这个土地，有一定的土地，有一定的房子。那说你的整个生活跟打仗挂钩。
Such was the system for rewarding soldiers set up by Xiangyang. 2,000 years afterwards, the bamboo slips written by Xi revealed many details of that system. In the case where a soldier collected 2 enemy heads in battle, his imprisoned parents would immediately be set free. If his wife were a slave, she would become a free citizen. In Chinese tradition, inheritance belongs to the family. Military honours could also be handed down. If the father were killed at the front, his awards passed to his son. Achieving great military exploits would benefit the whole family. This is tableware for the noble Qin class. The delicacy is still evident to the present-day eye. 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, power and wealth in society were shared according to one's blood relations and family background. The state of Qin, by adopting laws to award ranks of nobility to citizens and even to slaves for their military exploits, openly encouraged its people to seek fame and wealth. It was only the people of Qin at that time who seemed to be willing to accept such a legal structure. The tableware used by the common Qin people was much simpler and cruder compared to that of the nobles. It can be understood what the rank of nobility meant to the rank and file. Xi's bamboo slips also reveal that people of different ranks ate different food at their meals. Men in the third grade of the rank of nobility got 1 dough of polished white rice, 1 shang of sauce, and a plate of vegetable soup, while those in the second grade had coarse rice. A common soldier would be fortunate to find whatever food was available to satisfy his hunger. The class differences were very rigid. In view of such benefits, it's understandable why soldiers would fight amongst themselves over an enemy head. In the eyes of the Qin soldiers, the enemy head was a kind of currency with which to buy position and wealth.
"秦国的老百姓啊，见了战，听说打仗，就好像那个饿狼碰见食物一样，那样子一种感情。
In the pit of terracotta soldiers, there are some who hold short, sharp weapons for grappling, but do not wear leather armour. They stand out in this underground army. Who were they? This is something that has puzzled researchers. One possibility is this. There were some dangerous missions during the fighting which might have cost one one's life. In view of the handsome rewards, there would be volunteers. According to the system of rewarding military exploits with higher rank set up by Shangyang, the highest awards would go to those serving in a special branch of the army. Possibly this branch was the one Shangyang referred to as the charging men. It could be assumed that the Qin state over 2,000 years ago was a country where military men were found everywhere. To the millions of Qin people, going to the front was not only to fight for their country, it was also the only way to gain fame and wealth, escaping from poverty to a better position. In Chinese history, the culture and characteristics of the Qin people were unique. Possibly this had something to do with their origins. The Qin people used to live in the grasslands in the northwest of China. They lived among nomadic tribes. In the eyes of the people in the central part of China, where civilization was developed, they were backward and barbarous people. In spite of the fact that the Qin people tried hard to copy the civilization of central China, they never really managed to assume the elegance, the delicacy, balance and modesty which existed in the central civilization. In their minds, it was only natural to be aggressively military and go all out for their own benefit. Han Feizi was a great thinker during the Warring States period. He wrote down his own feelings when he first met the Qin people. Knowing there would be war, the Qin people became extremely anxious and restive, stripping to the waist and stamping their feet without the slightest care for life or death. A noted wandering advisor of that time wrote the following description of the Qin army. They march forward bravely, bareheaded and stripped to the waist. The way the Qin attack the other 6 states is like a stone smashing eggs. They run after their enemies carrying a human head in one hand and hold a captive under the other arm. The Qin army, as vividly described by the advisor, makes people tremble with fear. It was also discovered from Xi's bamboo slips that the Qin army drank a lot of wine before and after each battle. A bowl full of wine would heat the blood and bring excitement. As the order was given and fighting began, either death or promotion was in store. At a time like this, to the soldiers, wine would result in just one impulse: to kill the enemy and reap rewards. The researchers also discovered something curious. Most of the soldiers have quite a pot belly. This may be the result of long-term wine drinking. Now, returning to the soldiers with no helmets and only a few leather plates for protection, there seems to be only one explanation for this potentially life-threatening behaviour. The heavy helmets and plate armour would be obstacles to killing the enemy and thereby winning rewards. Sima Qian, in his work, The Historical Records, also said that Qin soldiers at the front went as far as stripping to the waist and throwing away their plate armour. These terracotta soldiers display a militant spirit. The Qin had strong attacking weapons but paid little attention to armour. That could be due to army regulations or the spontaneous behaviour of the soldiers. However, this is only an assumption. The rank awarding system set up by Shangyang consisted of 20 grades, from the lowest to the highest. This leads us to think about the connection to the present system of military ranks. Military ranks are symbols of military honour. It was a turning point in military history when the system of rank was instituted. It's a formal and effective system in the management of armed forces. Had the Qin army of over 2,000 years ago already adopted this kind of formal military rank system? Military ranks are normally displayed. Take a close look at this army. The hairstyle, the caps, and the way they dress are different. Is there anything in these differences related to their military rank? Yuan Zhongyi, an archaeologist, and his colleagues tried to come up with a reasonable explanation. The first 3 rows of soldiers with crossbows wear simple clothes. The hair is tied in a bun in the shape of a vertebra bending upwards. In the infantry, there are people who wear leather armour plates with their hair in pigtails fixed to the back of the head. The majority of the infantry wear round caps made of linen with a sharp point at the top, like this. Judging by their positions in the arrangement, the difference in clothing and hairstyle are not due to their lifestyle, but to their different ranks in the nobility. The specialists presumed that the soldiers holding crossbows with hair buns in simple clothes possibly belonged to the first grade of the rank in the nobility. This was the lowest grade, and they were called gongshi. Those in leather armour plates and round caps with pigtails were in the second grade and were called shangzao. Gongshi and shangzao were common soldiers, and they made up the majority of the army. Here, in this pit, they form the majority. Between the two walls there's an independent column. This one, with his arms stretching forward and reins in the hands, is the driver of a chariot. In this terracotta soldier's pit, all the drivers are wearing this board-shaped cap. Their leather corselets are of better quality than the ordinary soldiers. In the front, a chariot driver was in charge of the safety of the vehicle. This was a key position.
兵马俑更发现以后，我就提出了一个想法的意思。一个车的驾手，头是谁呢？是右手，而不是像过去说的车左或车右。
Referring to the historical records, a driver must have been in the third grade of the rank of nobility or above. It was quite possible that they were officers at the basic level. The driver had the chariot under his command. However, one chariot could not be a fighting unit. Who was the commanding officer of the entire column? There's an officer keeping his hand on his sword who looks serious and dignified. The cap he wears is a unique style, and his leather corselet is the finest of all the terracotta figures. The plates are delicate and well arranged, and there are bows on both the front and back, which apparently are equivalent to the epaulettes on today's military uniforms. According to the specialists, these officers should be in the 7th or 8th grade of the rank of nobility, and each one commands at least one column. This is the officer ranked between the driver and the column commander. He also wears the board-shaped cap. But there's a ridge in the middle of the cap. He's possibly an officer at the basic level in charge of a group of the column. The terracotta soldiers reveal only a small part of the military system in Qin state. A lot of the details are still unknown. In world military history, the Qin army was most probably the first to set up an integrated military rank system. Its organisation and administration were quite close to those of present-day armed forces. It was because of this rigidly stratified and orderly disciplined system that the Qin army was much more effective than those of the other states. In this integrated underground army group, the soldiers and the officers are all in their position and ready for action. There should be an overall commander. However, the archaeologists discovered that the highest ranking officer present here is the column commander, which resembles the position of a regimental commander in a modern army. Why does this reproduction of the Qin army not have a commander-in-chief? In 238 BC, the Qin king Yingjiang, later the first emperor of Qin who unified the country, took over power at the age of 22. The solemn coronation took place at Xiangyang Palace. Yingjiang inherited the throne at the age of 13, but as he was too young to govern, the administration of the state fell to the Queen Mother. It was a ceremony to declare the full power of the king. From then on, the fate of the Qin would be controlled by this young man. As the ceremony was in process, a long-planned rebellion broke out outside the palace. A man named Lao Ai and his men charged into the palace in order to seize power despite the danger. However, the rebellion ended in failure. Lao Ai was executed. As recorded by Sima Qian, the rebels killed a few hundred people, but failed to get the support of the army. They were only a few thousand in number, and they were quickly wiped out. Lao Ai's position was in the top 20th rank of nobility, and his power was second only to the king. For a time, he actually decided everything in the kingdom. Nevertheless, even a top official like him was not in a position to persuade the army into action. He tried to use the king and the queen mother's seals to instigate rebellion within the army, but it did not work. Who then, in Qin, had power over the army? There existed something called the tiger tally. Each tally was torn into 2 pieces, and the king and the army commanders kept each piece separately. According to the Qin laws, anyone who needed an army of over 50 men in peacetime had to present to the commander the relevant tiger tally piece from the king. When the 2 pieces were put together and found to fit, the tally was effective. So the tiger tally was symbolic of command over the army, and the king could rest assured that this power remained in his own hands. The Qin king must have had many tiger tallies. When King Yingzheng was informed of the rebellion, he immediately sent for the palace guards, and the rebels were quickly suppressed. It was impossible to steal the tally, and so the rebellious Lao Ai could not get support from the armed forces. His rising was doomed to failure. The terracotta soldiers here, as the symbol of the Qin army, can have had only one commander-in-chief, and that was the first Qin emperor himself, who now lies 1 kilometre away, buried under a huge mound of earth. The Qin army had the good fortune to be commanded by just one single leader and fought for 6 generations to unify China. However, perhaps this also led to its downfall. In 210 BC, the emperor died during a tour of inspection. 3 years after his death, that great army came to the end of its own history. The unification of China by Qin was a turning point in Chinese history, but was also the starting point for the demise of the Qin state. The Qin Empire lasted just 15 years. The once unconquerable army was also destroyed with the downfall of the empire. It struggled, but its combat effectiveness was very different from what it had been 15 years before. Qin's last days began with a story known to all Chinese. One night, during heavy rain, a 900-strong detachment of the army was marching. Due to the rain, however, they were delayed. Anyone who missed arriving in time for a military engagement should be executed. The 900 rose in rebellion. People all over the country immediately rose with them. The uprising quickly spread to all corners of the country. When the rebels approached the capital, Xianyang, they encountered a troop of defenders who were not part of the regular army, but a unit cobbled together from prisoners. These were the prisoners who had been working on the gigantic project of the underground tomb of the first emperor of Qin. The names on these terracotta pieces provide a proof of their hard work. As the uprising came to within just 5 kilometers of the capital, the second Qin emperor set these prisoners free and ordered them to fight against the rebels. So where was the main force of the Qin army? After the unification of the country, the main Qin army was separated into 2 parts. One was at the fortress near Guilin in Guangxi named Guanyan, where some 500,000 soldiers had just subdued the southern aboriginals and were safeguarding the southern borders. They chose not to act at this life and death moment of the empire. As Sima Qian wrote in the historical records, the highest-ranking officer on the spot ordered all the roads connecting the south and the north to be blocked, and declared that none should go up north to join in the fighting. Thus, the army in the south abandoned the empire they had once created. The other part of the main force was in the north of the empire. They had 300,000 men and had defeated the Huns in the north. They stayed there to watch over the Great Wall along the border. When the capital was in danger, they set out for the south, but for some unknown reason, they were very slow in arriving. So it was only the ramshackle troops formed of prisoners who fought to defend the capital. Nevertheless, they were extremely brave and soon wiped out the 100,000 rebels. The seriously wounded empire seemed to have survived. Then, a nobleman from the original southern state of Chu changed the fate of the Qin Empire forever. His name was Xiang Yu. The two remaining Qin armies joined together and fought against Xiang Yu's army at the area now called Jiulu in Hebei province. However, hundreds of thousands of Qin fell before the brave Chu army, and the rest were surrounded. The Qin army was then completely destroyed. Historians assume that it was possibly Xiang Yu who burnt and destroyed these terracotta soldiers. The all-powerful army had been unconquerable over the past 500 years, but was annihilated in a flash. It was shocking, and even today is difficult to believe. The arrogant birth and sudden death of the Qin Empire seem to have been decided by an irresistible force. And it was this same hidden force that decided the army's fate. In Chinese history, the Qin culture was unique. They adapted utilitarianism and pragmatism and were endowed with creativity and initiative. They seemed to prize above all regulation and discipline. They believed the power of military force could solve all problems. Probably a cultural tradition such as this was the decisive factor in the empire's emergence and rise, but at the same time, the cause of its downfall. It was the first emperor of Qin who brought the army to its brilliant peak. However, this emperor was too ambitious and exhausted the strength of his empire. Logically, the strength of the army depends on the strength of the state. During the last days of Qin, the empire was in disarray. When the soldiers were at the front, their families were suffering in poverty. The fate of the empire was doomed. Now, when we look back again at these military men of 2,000 years ago, we can see it was these people who created what was then the world's largest empire and thus created our history. Our writing today comes from the Qin. Our vast homeland is based on that great empire. The Qin Empire gave birth to an integrated Chinese nation. Our blood and soul are still linked with that great empire over 2,000 years ago.